Welcome to the Indian Newsling podcast by Venu Menon.
In this second and concluding part, Professor Shaw discusses the stalwarts of Western philosophy and compares them to the Nyaya tradition of Indian philosophy. Sort of like Immanuel Kant's concept of the aesthetic. How does the Nyaya approach that?
Now the thing is, Kant is a great philosopher. After Plato and Aristotle, we come across Kant. And then obviously Hegel. Kant is very great philosopher. If I have to mention only three philosophers from Western horizon, then obviously I have to mention Plato, Aristotle and Kant. And Kant, moral philosophy is really outstanding. And his sources of knowledge, he is concerned with knowledge also. In one critique, he is concerned with critique of pure reason, deals with knowledge. How knowledge is possible? And he interprets in terms of some sense data coming from outside, and mind gives a structure. We are born with some structure and we impose that structure on reality. And in the case of morals, he says that he postulates some moral principles that you ought not to treat human beings merely as an end in itself, or means to an end, but as an end in itself. And your actions should be universalizable. For example, if I make a promise, then it is my duty to keep the promise. Otherwise, I am using that person as a means to my end. And similarly, he says that it is your duty to help others so that their talents are manifested. So not only I should do for myself, but also I should do for others. So he has got really a good sense of dharma, our dharma. But our dharma has gone beyond human beings. This is the difference between Kant and our conception of dharma. The Kant tried to substantiate ethics without religion for the first time in Western philosophy. And our conception of dharma goes beyond Kant because it deals with not only human beings but also animals. We should alleviate the suffering of animals also. And causal conditions for suffering should be removed. And there should be harmony in the world also. So, in that sense, Indian philosophers have gone beyond Kant. Secondly, in Kant there is no discussion on animals. But in Indian philosophy, there is a discussion on animals as well as discussion on trees. Because if you cut a tree with fruits and flowers, then there is a provision for praschitto. That means you ought not to cut trees with fruits and flowers. And Indian philosophy, even in the tradition also, there are so many types of violence. Shankar philosophy, Yoga philosophy has mentioned 81 types of violence. Even if you do not oppose violence, then it is another very subtle type of violence. Not opposing means you are accepting implicitly, not opposing. So in that context, Indian philosophy has covered a wide range of topics of ethics.
Kant also had a critique of the aesthetic, beauty.
That's right, beauty.
Also,
Also,
Nyaya.
Nyaya.
approach
Now,
that.
Nyaya also discussed beauty, but mainly accepted the views of Kashmiri philosophers, Dhanda Lekha or they have also developed called metaphorical expressions. Metaphors, they have discussed so much metaphorical expressions. And the classification of metaphors like the villages on the Ganges. Different people can get different thoughts. One person might get the thought that village is very pious place, that living, near the Ganges. Another view is that it is a great place for making journey to holy places. And then they also got views about metaphors, how to classify metaphors, and how to include also the meaning of the speaker. It is called tatpurja, intention of the speaker. So, in describing the beauty of language, you have to take into account the thoughts of the intention of the speakers.
So my final question is, as Western philosophy is open, is accepting of the Nyaya system of thought?
Now it is an uphill battle. My book, which contains 30 articles, published by Bloomsbury, the top Western publisher and London-based, and twice or even more than 2 times they got the award being the best publisher in UK. So that book has been published just recently, a few years ago, 5-6 years ago.
What is the title of that book?
The Collected Writings of J L Shaw, Anglophone and Analytical Philosophy. Anglophone and Analytical Philosophy. I can show you this book also.
It's also published by Bloomsbury.
Bloomsbury. Indian Analytic and Anglophone Philosophy.
Okay.
I have compared here Western views with Indian views. And it is published by them, Bloomsbury, Western publisher. They approached me. I was surprised when they approached me that they would like to publish a book. And then I mentioned that best thing is if you can publish a collection of my articles focusing on Indian as well as Western philosophy. And as I mentioned, I got 4 aims. One is how to reconcile their conflict. Another is how to solve their age-old problems of philosophy, like belief. Russell said that nobody has succeeded in explaining a false belief without postulating the existence of the non-existent. But I have shown that Nyaya philosophers can do that. They have discussed belief at length, and I have reconstructed all types of sentences of belief, comprehensive, and how Nyaya system can explain those beliefs without postulating unreal entity or image or proposition or tertiary. Then knowledge. Knowledge, it is coming from Plato. Plato got 2 views. One is official view of knowledge. Knowledge means knowledge of the ideas, which are in Plato's heaven. So human beings are replica. They are reflections of humanity. They are not real humanity. They are not real, but they are reflections. And knowledge means knowledge of humanity, knowledge of horses, knowledge of ideas. At the apex is the idea of the good in Plato. But he also got knowledge, which is belief, true, but he claims it must have an account. Account means justification. So knowledge got three properties: that it is a belief, that belief has to be true, and it requires justification. Then in 20th century philosophy, starting from 1964, this conception of knowledge has been criticized. And there is further addition to this conception of knowledge. So people went on adding new dimensions to knowledge. But the Nyaya view is, which I discussed with my gurus, and especially Pandit Vishwabandhu Tarkatirtha, the last surviving scholar of Nabya tradition of Bengal. He came to Calcutta, as I mentioned, in 1930 and grew up at his guru's place. After discussion, I found that Western problems can be solved because they are taking three properties unrelated. But the Nyaya approach is that knowledge is a justified true belief, but truth is a property of belief and justification is a property of truth. Justification is a property of truth. What does it mean? That there is a guarantee for its truth. And if we take this approach, then Western problems can be solved.
Thank you for listening to the Indian Newsling podcast by Venu Menon.